Hello and welcome to INIF. In this video, I am gonna talk about some reasons by which Titanic ship was sunk. The first and foremost is icebergs. Icebergs can pose a significant danger to ships in a number of ways. The most obvious is the risk of collision. Because most of the iceberg is hidden underwater, a ship may not see it until it is too late. Even a glancing blow can cause significant damage to a ship, and a direct hit can be catastrophic. Icebergs can also cause problems for ships in other ways. For example, the presence of icebergs can make it difficult for ships to navigate. In some cases, ships may have to slow down or change course in order to avoid icebergs, which can cause delays and increase the risk of other hazards, such as storms or other navigational hazards. Icebergs can also cause problems for ships by disrupting the flow of ocean currents. When an iceberg melts, it releases fresh water into the surrounding ocean. This can alter the salinity and temperature of the water, which can in turn affect the behavior of ocean currents. In some cases, this can lead to changes in weather patterns, which can be dangerous for ships. The sinking of the Titanic is perhaps the most famous example of a ship sinking due to a collision with an iceberg. The Titanic was a luxury passenger liner that was on its maiden voyage from Southampton, England to New York City, when it struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic Ocean on April 14, 1912. The ship sank in the early morning hours of April 15, and more than 1,500 people lost their lives. The exact sequence of events that led to the sinking of the Titanic is still a matter of some debate, but most experts agree that it was caused by a combination of factors, including the design of the ship, the speed at which it was traveling, and the fact that the crew did not take adequate precautions to avoid icebergs. One of the key factors that contributed to the sinking of the Titanic was the design of the ship. The Titanic was considered to be one of the most luxurious and technologically advanced ships of its time, but it was not designed with safety in mind. The ship's designers believed that the Titanic was unsinkable, and so they did not include enough lifeboats, or take other precautions that could have saved lives in the event of an emergency. Another factor that contributed to the sinking of the Titanic was the speed at which the ship was traveling. The Titanic was capable of traveling at speeds of up to 23 knots, which was considered to be very fast for a ship of its size. This speed was maintained even in areas where icebergs were known to be present, which meant that the crew had less time to react to any hazards that might have been in their path. Finally, the crew of the Titanic did not take adequate precautions to avoid icebergs. Although the ship had received numerous warnings about icebergs in the area, the crew did not slow down or change course. As a result, the ship collided with an iceberg shortly before midnight on April 14. The iceberg ripped a hole in the side of the ship, and water began flooding into the compartments below deck. Although the Titanic had been designed to withstand damage from a collision with an iceberg, the damage inflicted by the iceberg was too severe. The ship began to sink slowly, and although efforts were made to evacuate passengers and crew in the lifeboats, there were not enough boats to accommodate everyone on board. More than 1,500 people lost their lives in the disaster. The sinking of the Titanic had a profound impact on the world, and it remains one of the most famous maritime disasters in history. The lessons learned from the sinking of the Titanic led to improvements in ship design and safety, and today's ships are much safer as a result. However, the dangers posed by icebergs and other hazards remain a concern for ships and their crews, and efforts are ongoing to improve safety and reduce the risk of accidents. One of the most important lessons learned from the sinking of the Titanic is the need for ships to be designed with safety in mind. Today's ships are built to much higher standards than those of the early 20th century, with features such as reinforced hulls, watertight compartments, and sophisticated navigational equipment. In addition, ships are required to carry enough lifeboats to accommodate all passengers and crew in the event of an emergency. Another lesson learned from the Titanic disaster is the importance of training and preparedness. Today's sailors are trained to respond quickly and effectively to emergencies, and ships are required to conduct regular drills to ensure that crew members are familiar with emergency procedures. In addition to these measures, there are a number of technologies and techniques that can help reduce the risk of collisions with icebergs and other hazards. For example, ships can use radar and sonar to detect icebergs and other objects in the water, and they can use satellite imagery to track ice flows and predict where hazards are likely to be. Some ships are also equipped with ice-hardened hulls and other features that can help reduce the risk of damage in the event of a collision. Despite these measures, the risk of collisions with icebergs and other hazards remains a concern for ships and their crews. In recent years, there have been a number of high-profile accidents involving ships and icebergs, including the sinking of the Russian cruise ship MV Lyubov Orlova in 2013, and the grounding of the bulk carrier MV Ocean Prefect off the coast of Canada in 2019. To address these risks, there is ongoing research into new technologies and techniques that can help ships avoid collisions with icebergs and other hazards. For example, researchers are exploring the use of autonomous ships that can navigate safely around hazards without human intervention. Other researchers are working on developing new materials that can withstand the impact of collisions with icebergs and other hazards. In conclusion, icebergs can pose a significant danger to ships, as demonstrated by the sinking of the Titanic. However, there are a number of measures that can help reduce the risk of accidents, including improvements in ship design, training and preparedness, and the use of new technologies and techniques. While the risk of collisions with icebergs and other hazards remains a concern, ongoing efforts to improve safety are helping to reduce the risk and ensure that ships and their crews can operate safely and effectively in even the most challenging environments.